It's July 15th, 2026. We're going to have a talk about yesterday. A lot. And then we're going to have some other talks. How dumb these people are. Officer Mark, Officer John, when we're in the VA, when we're in the room with Carl, he needs to find out who had went in that room, may have been hiding somewhere or outside the door. Because I heard people talking and it wasn't funny. Okay. Yesterday, also in the Delroy Carrollton area, a big man showed up. And that he had heard that girl stole money again. She wasn't to take a dime. She was to be working it off for the drug lord. Okay. Well, people were following me around. And when they found out they used a pretend John to verify everything, people scattered. Realization how not funny that prostitute is. In 2018, in Walmart 62, in front of the police and FBI, they said, bring in the other John to get away with this. This guy looks really similar to my son, but he's taller. Walked by with his nose up in the air. I thought, you do look like my son. Okay. Well, last year, I was telling Carl about Thanksgiving of 18. This is June 13th, 14th of 25. Of that, how Mel's kids were taped saying they made everything up. They were games of pretend. They wanted the house for Auntie Shell and Papa. And I didn't know what the mean games of pretend were for a year. When Flora stated them, oh, of course it never happened. Of course it wasn't true. We made it up. They were games of pretend. And how a year later, Melissa pulled a mean stunt with John. And she snuck in his house after their divorce, hid, and while he's in the bathroom, waits for him to come out, screams and lunges at him. He pushed her, being startled. And she laughed. Now I got you. Had him arrested domestic violence. I don't know who arrested him, but that's breaking and entering. We have the stand your ground law in Ohio. You enter somebody's home uninvited, there can be horrible consequences because you have the right to stand your ground. And startling somebody, anybody would have shoved him. Lost his kids for a year. He wanted to go for custody. He called me up. He said, Mom, I'd like you to be a reliable name on a court record to watch my kids after school. And I said, John, I work 2 jobs. I don't get off the first one, let alone the second one. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Mom, if you don't help me, I'll lose my kids forever. These are my kids. And you could just hear the pain in his voice. And I said, John, I don't get off the first job, let alone the second. I'm sorry, I barely make it now. I'm sorry I can't help you, but these are my kids, Mom. I said, John, I won't be able to afford my apartment. I am so sorry. And he kept pleading with me. I said, I'm sorry. I can't help you. He lost his kids. He moved to Florida. Met this new woman, married her. They started a church, and him and her had a baby, and they look happier than ever. He had to get away from the call. Well, I'm telling him about that story. We pull into Katana's. People get a restaurant. People get out around us. If John's been in Florida for years, who's that riding around with them asking him to kill her? None of this is funny. They were setting him up for premeditated murder. That night outside my work, some guy's talking. If John's been in Florida, who have I been talking to? We don't know. They had somebody impersonate him. Well, May 24th, 26th, Myers, North Main, and North Canton. We pull in. I see that guy. I said, Carl, see that guy? He looks like the pretend John. He said, he does look like that picture you showed me of your son. I said, he's shaven now, where he had a full beard like John had before. He's with a white girl and with black hair walking in ahead of us. We go into the fruit area and vegetables, produce area. And he walks up to me. How did it go years ago? Oh, yeah. Puts his nose up in there. I thought, oh my God, it's you. That white girl with the black hair got on the phone. Now, my phone is tapped by the police and FBI. It records if I'm on it or not. My phone was there. FBI informant. Girl picks up the phone and she calls someone. She's like, how dumb were they? Bringing the pretend John in front of the police and the FBI when the case first started to have him verify everything. They knew this whole thing was a scam on her. Oh, they were making fun of her because Agent John stole her money. See, that's where the fraud case. They're laughing because they think they're going to make billions of dollars off the government if they don't pay me. Well, I said that people scattered. Reality, the whole thing is a scam. Well, investigators had said way back in 1819, John's telling everybody that she never hurt anyone. July 26, 25, an investigator from 18, where a couple had got smart with me and Bob Evans on 62. After, I went off, went over to Walmart 62. We go in, and this investigator comes in. I told that couple never to say a word to her again. I interviewed John years ago. He actually 18. He said nothing bad ever happened to him. June 7th, 25. They had went to Dr. Haben's office on Fulton Road. And he was a kid's pediatrician from 1984 to 2002. He verified. Seen him 3 or 4 times a year. 18 years. No sign of any abuse. And no sign of neglect, and very well taken care of. MD, medical proof, nobody was ever harmed. June 3rd, 23, where John was a union rep for the electrical union. Had 3 offices, thousands of contacts. Was even a college professor for the vocational college to help people become electricians. He was also managers of several places. Told them all. Ran around telling all of them. I pull in a gas station June 3rd, 23. My car is bugged. Said, hey, and that electricians pulling their electrical company, their vans. And that John's mom? He said she's never hurt anyone. Because of these people, he may never see her again. And it's just because of those people. And that's his mom. I know. And it's just because of those people. And he said she's never hurt anyone. Okay? Right after Thanksgiving of 18, the FBI and police call Melissa out in front of everyone. Why are they having those kids make that shit up? Oh, they're trying to scare her into giving up the house. That's it. Her whole family is speaking highly of her. Officer Mark, I hate to arrest Melissa. Her kids are little. Why don't we just write it up? Her and the kids were showing off for David and his girlfriend. They're documenting me games over time. That Melissa's so stupid she made everything up when you were fishing with Dave. She said, actually, that's stupid. She didn't check where you were. Called her stupid. Trying this in front of them. 2 guys that said they worked for the drug lord said Melissa was willing to help them get away with it. Have the kids lie? You're kidding. No, I told her, say, So they followed around and found out what the was. She's going to end up in jail for this. You wait. Because you ever notice those officers that give you one time to get out of there? And they tell you to leave. And you stay. And then what do they arrest you for? Obstruction. They gave you one chance to get out of there. Okay? Now we're going to have some talks about some laws and the crazy crap of going down the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole of the craziness of that prostitute and these people, and stop falling for their scams. You know, April 19th, 25, I'm in Hartville, the kitchen at Hartville Kitchen. They also have like a gift area, and then where they have vendors. And I was walking around where they have the vendors and stuff like that. There's investigators in there. How dumb are these people? You wouldn't believe how actually dumb they are. Call them dumb or stupid. Trust me, nobody ever fell for the dirty doctor scam. Taping her unaware of confessing of crimes and sat on it till Dave wanted a divorce. What is wrong with that statement? It is a federal crime for a doctor to tape you unaware. It's a federal crime for him to be in it with Dave. If they know somebody is being hurt and they don't report it to the police, they go to jail as an accessory. 30, 40 years in that statement alone. And then they said nobody fell for it. And you could tell she was drugged when they drugged her and told her to say it before. And parts of it sounded mechanical. And we knew it was all them and not her. And that tape of weird with yourself. We knew it was photoshopped or washing in the shower. And the whole thing was a scam. We already knew that. We never fell for it once. But if they were going to be that dumb and try this with us, we told Agent John to go to that church and tell on her and to act like these people so we could find out who's involved. See, that's where I was always told this was supposed to be an act of Agent John's. Where even the Maslin police, we were all acting like we were going along with it so we could trick that Will into bringing in all his drug contacts. We could get him. They were tricking that guy. See, that's where the Stark County Sheriffs on July 5th, 26. What did they say? We thought Agent John was just pretending to go along with it to get these drug dealers. And when he showed up at that courthouse with those people trying to get the case thrown out, we found out he's really with them. We're not for sure what the FBI is going to do about it. So we're going to have some talks. Some of their comments. Why do you think nobody helped her? John verified it for him. No, he didn't. You had somebody impersonate him. Brought him in front of me, in front of the feds, and they knew it was impersonation. What did he tell everybody? And what did he tell the rural FBI? Nothing bad happened to him. Nobody could say anything bad about me. And that I'd never hurt anyone. Now, I want you to think this scenario. Think of this scenario. Like a girl sat out in Alliance Walmart about a month or so ago. How dumb are these people trying this? How dumb? Nobody would fall for it. You can't basically just roofie somebody and tell them to say something horrible. And then somebody say, oh, we're going to be part of the roofie. You actually have to have proof. Somebody has to be harmed. They have to be seen at a hospital. There has to be treatment for injuries. There has to be a police report, a police investigation, physical evidence, and prosecution, or you have nothing. And you can't have mean games of pretend they're laughing about in front of everybody. And nobody's ever got hurt. You can't just make this shit up. No, you can't. And like people have said, what would you verify? You were part of a drug beating, rape, and a scam on somebody? Now, we're going to have a talk about the rabbit hole of craziness. Okay? One of their scams they came up with, they had a doctor willing to talk to them. That's a federal crime. They gave him her medical records. That's a federal crime. And that they were taking her medical records and setting them in front of the police and the FBI and other people. Oh my Lord. Do you realize how many years in jail mandatory that is? See, they're so dumb they don't know any laws. What is a jail sentence for an opposing attorney being in with one of your doctors without your knowledge, trying to warn you, giving out your medical records for them to have without your knowledge or consent? HIPAA violations, federal law over your medical records. They're under the right of privacy. Your medical records are your own. And it's nobody's damn business. An opposing attorney and a doctor doing that. HIPAA violations, loss of license for the attorney and the doctor immediately. 10 years federal. It's also healthcare fraud, wire fraud, can go into extortion. We're talking 40 to life in federal for giving out medical records without release, a doctor talking to an opposing attorney being in there with them. They could never have my medical records. In January of 19, they said they had fake paperwork to make it look official. It's not true about her. The guy wrote it up, didn't like her. Investigators have wondered if they stole somebody else's medical records and put my name on them. They're not mine. See, that's where that agent on the recorded line, I bet you're going to say you don't know anything about this psychiatrist for sexual disorders of wanting your brother. That's disgusting. I never seen a psychiatrist for sexual disorders, and I never wanted my brother. And that prostitute isn't funny. They already confessed March 27th, 25. Another Michelle in that group was dating on an agent on a ruse, and she confessed to him that the doctor from before was not one of mine, works for them, and they had lied he was one of her doctors. And when they bashed in my head, they tried to kill me or leave me incompetent, and it didn't work. And they got it out of Dave that a girlfriend from before me made him marry me so that he could get a job at my dad's factory and she'd have free insurance. Where some other lady was using my insurance, and Dave said some crazy lady is stole your identity, where we see all this identity fraud, Karen, on TV. They're running up medical bills in your name. If we don't pay those co-pays, they'll put me in jail. And they had accused Dave of cheating and that he was letting a girlfriend back then. And I confronted him. He said, Karen, I'd never cheat on you. And they said it was with a heavyset white round woman. And he said, why would I want a heavyset white round woman if I have you? And he denied it and that they were all lying and we were just victims of identity fraud. Didn't have to show ID to start a doctor, to get medical treatment, surgeries, nothing. That's how people used to have surgeries on other people's insurance and get away with it unless somebody died or needed a blood transfusion. People let people use their insurance a lot, and that's when the crackdown after into the 2000s, it made the hospitals and stuff require an ID. Back then, you didn't have to have it. Okay? Half my medical records, they got it out of David, was another girlfriend with him for 15 years. Half my medical records are hers. It wasn't a random lady. I was only 18, 19 and stupid, thinking I'm at work. But when I'm with you, and we all know he don't stay at work. Now we know. He cheated on me my whole marriage. I had chest pains for days to find out my marriage. The whole thing was a scam. They also got it out of that family that was telling everybody that it offended them, that Strange calling her a faker. They were all lying to the FBI, helping them get away with it. Didn't even concern them. March 20th, 26th, Walmart West Tusk by the electronics investigator from 18, how an FBI agent had got it out of that family. They're all lying to the FBI that offended him. Strange calling her a faker. Trying to help these people get away with it. Found out Strange hated the government. No wonder he tried this with us. See, that's where Officer Mark and the guys that showed up, trust me, we always knew it wasn't one of Karen's doctors. They could never be with them. It'd be illegal. These people are so irrational and crazy. I was at my community health last year, and the lady doctor said, I want to read the notes before you leave. Said that some office hired a psychiatrist on their own to evaluate her. No one's allowed to say a word because it was an office. What is wrong with this? It is illegal for an office to hire a psychiatrist. They can't hire a doctor to evaluate you. You have to sign consent and picture ID to be evaluated. They can't hire one. That's healthcare fraud. HIPAA. There's a big problem. I don't know what office did it. Don't know what psychiatrist didn't sign consent for being evaluated. That's medical malpractice. There's HIPAA in there. Healthcare fraud and wire fraud. That's 40 years for that fucking letter. And I was never evaluated, nor did I sign release for them to send it. It's all fraud. But they're that extreme. See, it's not even funny when they laughed in my face during the case. That, Dave was doing stuff like that to her before. It's like, shut up. He was even paying people off to write up. She was insane. Shut up. That's not curable. A doctor can't write it up. It takes a stay in a state hospital to get a hold of the court, and it takes a competency hearing and a judge, and it is mandatory law that it gets transferred over to the state if you actually are insane. Because you become a ward of the state. It gets out of the doctor's hands and it has to be transferred to the state. Personal liberty law of 1867, where doctors were actually taking payoffs for that. Okay? They outlawed it, made it mandatory that that person goes to a state psychiatric hospital for treatment. They get a hold of the courts, and it is mandatory. They have a competency hearing. Mandatory, a jury trial. And it takes a judge in a jury trial. Not a doctor writing up fraud and taking a payoff for that. That's ridiculous. And that is fraud. Now, I am a victim of medical malpractice and fraud from 2002 and before, where I had 6 to 10 surgeries, my muscles locked up. I was in excruciating pain, went to a bunch of doctors, a bunch of crackpots. They gave me wrong medication. My whole body swelled up. I had seizures. I had heart attacks. adrenal gland, thyroid shut down, and they almost killed me. They were lying so bad. They said I had level 2 pituitary tumors, need part of my brain removed. I go to my community health, they put their hand up and go, whoa, we need to have a long talk what those doctors are doing. There's nothing wrong with you but your muscles locked up. These doctors are known for lying, falsely diagnosing people, ripping them off, getting kickbacks from drug companies, doing in it with their associates and friends, doing the same thing. They have defrauded you, and they have almost killed you. Get an attorney and sue them, we'll go to court with you. They have almost killed you. Terminal State to pull their license, encouraged us for years to sue them. They told the FBI and police that the first month of the case. Like some investigators had said, good thing we didn't know about all that medical fraud. Those doctors would still be in jail. Where June 29, 26, Altman, stay here in Louisville. Okay, that guy that checked out Carl, he walked in a room, he's talking to somebody. He said, I never noticed her legs are crooked. She does walk funny. I looked it up. She does have degenerative joint disease. He said, I looked up all the doctors from before. No wonder they're all wrote up as fraud. Medical malpractice and medication errors. Those doctors almost killed her with her whole body swelling up, seizures, heart attacks, thyroid, adrenal gland shut down. No wonder other doctors thought she was dying. And there's no excuse. They didn't pull her off all those meds. Those doctors almost killed her. It's documented. See, it's not funny when you are seeing they paid people to write up more fraud. I have my medical records already have his girlfriends. And then mental illness and mental insanity is not curable. And like the investigator said, the only time that you can be insane and then fine is medication-induced psychosis, where like LSD or other drugs make you crazy. When the drug wears off, you're fine. Or they flat out lied. These people have even told people they thought I was so stupid I'd fall for any of this. Well, I'm not. See, that's where Dave told Danny, April 16, 23, where they lied on Danny and Jen. They were part of the shower scene in the other room. They didn't know anything about it. And April 16th, 23, across the parking lot, I seen Danny and Jen walk up to Gabe and Shay. Finally went to Dad, asked him what on earth is going on. He said he had hired some guy named Pete on his own. Was Pete and his men in our home before? Pete has her frame. Pete has her tape, the filthy, dirty statement. Just some guy Dave hired. Where that prostitute that Agent John's dating. June 26, 26. Dodge Valley Restaurant. Comes in. It's my family doing all this for me. And for me to get everything. They're stealing everything from her because she's a faker. And we're teaching her a lesson because she's a faker. And they're stealing everything from me. The drug dealers we hired to do this to her taped her in the shower washing herself and photoshopped that in the other room to make her look weird with herself, making fun of her. You have to pay to do that? And those guys picked her out personally to do this to her. I know, they announced it. They said I was a perfect victim. I was a perfect person. Nobody calls on, nobody checks. Nobody cares about life. We can get away with doing this to her. We can isolate her alone so bad. We could kill her or take her off somewhere and they wouldn't know till it's too late. And they would tell people that. They handpicked me to run the scam on because they didn't think anybody didn't care about me. It's not that people didn't care. They were neglectful. And because I was always an independent person, they always thought Mom would be okay. It's not that they didn't care. And where Danny and Jen and Josh and all them would always step in when we lived in Maslin, in Perry Township, because it was convenient. We moved 40 miles away in the middle of nowhere. We were an hour away. And since I'm an independent person, they didn't think about it. They were just neglectful. It's not they didn't care. We're November 23rd, 25, Summit Mall, Macy's, girls downstairs. We needed someone to run a scam on, to extort money from the government. Yeah, her ex-husband was already connected to us, so we asked him if we could do it to her. He said yes. If they made sure that he got everything during the divorce. And they would walk around in front of the police and FBI and say stuff like that. Deal with Dave as he gets everything in the divorce. That and I was the perfect person to pick out. Nobody cared about life. Nobody calls, nobody checks on. We can actually get away with it here. We can isolate her alone to the point that we could kill her or take off with her and nobody would know until it's too late. And they handpicked me because they thought I was a perfect victim. Now, in May of 19, Memorial Day weekend, I go down to Walmart 62. There's a heavyset white woman screaming it out for Walmart to hear. For it's my daughter her husband dates. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's for my daughter they're doing all this for. And it's our family watching her and doing this. Where that girl said it was her family. They even bragged. We called Will and he set her up. We explained Michelle and he set her up. What, your prostitute daughter? Which, September 30th, 25, where that girl was cackling in the restaurant. She was cackling in front of the wrong people. Drug dealers. Mocking them. How they fooled everybody. Made the wrong people mad. You know what they did? They basically got a confession out of her in front of the cops. Brought her down outside my vehicle that is legally bugged by the FBI and police and with a protected custody case. Screaming at 1 o'clock in the morning. Guys running it. No one's to say a word to her again in her life. They found out this whole thing is your family's debt to drug dealers. Is that what's going on? Yes. Does she even know who you are? No, I don't want her to know. She don't even know you. And you had her skull bashed in, her raped and tortured because you're in debt to drug dealers? Yes, I'm sorry. I listened to her and her friend Matt talk January 13th, 23 about the Ohio drug dealers were threatening that agent's life because they thought he let all those people be human trafficked, and it was your family letting them be human trafficked? And it was your family even human trafficking people to pay off those debts to drug dealers? Yes, I'm sorry. She sold children and she's sorry. Was your family inciting your new husband's family to take his farm and to threaten his life, to steal everything from him? Well, yeah, but I really like that farm. I wanted it. Like, it makes it okay because she wanted it. Did you know by August of 23 that the original cartel already admitted they photoshopped everything? I knew that. Did you know they confronted her ex-husband if he knew it was fraud, medical malpractice, and medication errors that made her sick before? And they encouraged them to sue those doctors for years? Yeah, I know that. So, well, she's calling me a faker. She knows she's not. She's lying. Trying to pull a little con. Well, July 5th, 26, I'm in a church. I had to take someone there. And that prostitute has made fools out of everyone. I go to walk by some girls. The mind reader. Do you realize that you sound like retards? Said she's weird inside. You're weird inside. I sat down and I thought, ignore. Guy comes out of nowhere. They won't say a word to her again. She had enough courage to walk in here. And she's working. A few minutes later, those girls walk by. Some guy said no one's to say a word. We're not to say a word like that to her ever again. That some prostitute was laughing in a restaurant how she stole all her money. And how she fooled everybody. Stark County Sheriffs, we're talking that girl that was laughing in a restaurant, is that agent's girlfriend that he has to pay today. Well, the guy called her a prostitute. That's a FBI agent or a undercover police. We all thought he was just acting that way to get the drug dealers. Where the Massillon police said that they were all acting that way, that they were going along with it to scam that Will into bringing his drug connection here so they could all grab him. They were acting that way. We thought that agent was only acting that way until he showed up at that courthouse with those people trying to get the case thrown out, now realizing he's actually part of them. Don't know what the FBI is going to do about it. Okay. I get home. There's a guy outside. Now my car is bugged. Investigators have admitted to listening through the car speakers. There's a guy outside. July 5th, 26, 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, screaming out. The drug lord found out that guy they call Henry Maffey, his kid was laughing in a restaurant. She stole all her money. She was never to get a dime. She wasn't supposed to take her money. That drug lord only gave her to that agent to date. So it convinced him to open up a fraud case. So to get thrown out and any drug dealers arrested, that they could sue the government for tens of millions of dollars each for false arrest under fraud. It was for the drug dealers to make millions, not for a person like her to get a dime. She was never to touch her money. No, they would have wanted me to have my money, so I'd take off. So the whole thing set up as fraud, and then the surveillance would get thrown out, and I wouldn't know it. I wouldn't be here to defend it. That's where that guy showed up yesterday. Found out she stole money again. He said that, and she was only supposed to work that money off for the drug lord. She wasn't to take any. Now we're going to talk about some more of their Twilight scams. Now stop falling for them, because these people are retarded morons. Okay? Where 12/21/18, I was stabbed in the neck, bashed in the back of the head, beaten, raped, and left for dead. Okay, I have a dent in my head. I have to have eye surgery. I could lose my eyesight because I got fast-growing cataracts where the pressure changed, and now they're forming from where the pressure changed. My eyes are healthy otherwise. And I just have to basically, where the pressure got changed, the scar tissue coming forward, basically taken off. I'll lose my eyesight. Okay? They told people they chipped me. Well, most chips are puppy shots. A lot of businesses use them. But we're going to put it this way. They even told people they had mind-reading machines. Okay. They're crazy scenarios. I researched. There is such things. And the government had it before 2000. It's been outlawed since 2007. I did so much research on their lives because they're so Twilight Zone. Okay? It's called the Torture and Terrorism Act of 2007. In the research, there with the law that it outlawed it. It's against all human rights and all human dignity. Any kind of mind-reading surveillance, mind-reading chips, devices, anything. It's against all basic human rights and all human dignity. And in that court order, I guess the CIA had people, I think it was Guantanamo, I'm not for sure. They had people there, and they actually did it to one person died, and the other ones had it removed. And then they compensated, and those agents went to jail basically the rest of their life. It's considered torture and terrorism. And it was outlawed that it could not be used on anybody in the United States ever again. And with that kind of chip, they can actually implant false memories. So you don't chip people to get the truth out of them. You can actually frame them with it. See, if you actually research their Twilight sci-fi movie kind of shit, their governments had stuff like that, and how they outlawed it and what you could actually do with it and how you can frame people with it. And then how it's illegal and outlawed. You know, those idiot people run around with their Twilight scam. March 13th, 21. Now, I had migraines for 2 to 3 years. Felt like half my head was going to explode from being bashed in the back of the head. Okay. I went into Altman emergency room. That heavy-set lady that said she was the prostitute's mama comes in with some fake FBI agents. Walks up to me. The FBI tipped you because he wanted the truth out of you. It's like, shut up. Just looked at her. I thought, look away. Don't ignore. Look over their flashing fake badges. Get in the back. Dr. Ellen Atinas comes in, and I told him, I said I got bashed in the back of the head. I said I am part of an FBI case, and there was drug dealers involved, and they've been running around telling people they'd chip me. And I said, but I got bashed in the back of the head and knocked out, and I've been having really bad headaches, and it's been years, and I'm still having them at times. He goes to leave the room. Some idiots out there. Some damn master nerd tipped her, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, shut up. Then people are talking about the gunshot night, Dave outside the room, Dave being caught, and the case is swirling like a hurricane around me. I have to go to the bathroom. And that weird Eric, one of the drug dealers that laughed at everybody, November 18th, 22, all the tapes before were me and not her. It was my idea to come up with it, my idea to do it, my idea to say it. For all these people turn around, they fell for it. That guy, still pulling a scam, talking to one of the nurses. Eric, I know you guys said you taped her before. I thought, shut up, and you shouldn't be talking about one of your patients. I go back to my room. Security walks by, called me bad names because some drug dealer just called him up and lied to him. I check myself out. I go over to Mercy Medical. I told him, I said, I'm having really bad headaches. I got bashed in the back of the head. My ex tried to have me murdered. And they ran drug scams on me. And if somebody calls, this is what's going on. They said they won't pull it here. I go in the back and I could hear a lady outside. No man was actually supposed to ever touch her. They weren't to let any man touch her. A few minutes later, the nurse comes in with a guy. She looks over at him and said, you know, the only thing they actually had on her was simply adjusting herself. The guy's like, that's sick. She's like, no, it's actually funny. She simply brushed off water with clothes on. The guy said, that's sick. Said, no, she just simply brushed it off. She simply wiped off water with clothes on. That's all I had. She just brushed it off, which is nothing. She's like, yeah. And he said, that's like where, simply adjusting yourself, simply wiping off water with clothes on, simply brushing it off. And he's like, that's sick, that's sick. And she's like, no, it's actually funny. They didn't have anything else. It's actually really funny. See, that's where their tapes are altered, of photoshopped or washing in the shower, to the drugs and told to say it, racing people out of the room, in a drug scam by drug dealers. Whole thing is a scam. Not saying at this point went like a body scan, because these people are nuts. I was talking to this one nurse. She said there was an online chat of human traffickers and the scams they pull on people. They are telling rape victims that they're releasing that they chipped them. And if they tell law enforcement they were raped, that they couldn't hide them anywhere and they could find them no matter what. It was a scam to keep rape victims quiet. And it was a scam they were using on them. Okay? Now, that's where the first case, they try to tell people they had sodium pentothal reports. We have the right to drug her to get the truth out of her. You have a right to remain quiet, and that's pharmaceutical torture. And like the investigator said, it wasn't even funny. They said they had that when they couldn't even get it. The hypnotic drugs, and told to say it. August 4th, 25, August 5th, 25, August 7th, 25, August 31st, 25, and December 1st, 25. Hypnotic drugs, and told to say it. That causes sleepwalking, mental taste in your mouth, no memory. Okay? They admitted from the beginning of the case where you had bruises before throwing up and infected. It wasn't the well water, it was us. We were drugging you and telling you to say this. We were drugging you and telling you to say that. We photoshopped all our lies, to racing people out of the room, to drugging me and telling me to say it before, on that they framed me. I mean, onslaught, that it's a shower scene in the other room. It's just a drug scam. That's all. When you break it down, the whole thing is nothing but a drug scam. But Dave even verified it wasn't a doctor. It was just some guy named Pete he hired on his own. And where that girl said the drug dealers they hired, they're drug dealers that did this. Where Officer Mark said it was a drug cartel in my home before they seen him. It was. These people, that prostitute told Faith Family Church and other people that she was retired Judge Pete's daughter, friends with Ludic, letting them get away with crime. She was a judge's daughter, so she was above the law. She could have anybody harmed, and here she's a fucking prostitute. And the drug cartel lying to people. I heard down in New Philly, in that area, she's trying to pull the judge's daughter shit. They need to tell them that she's nothing but a prostitute in the drug cartel. See this whole thing, and then the whole thought, Melissa, my ex-daughter-in-law, John's ex-wife, was even part of this. I had more respect for her than she did herself. Her and John were toxic together. They cheated on each other, fought, broke up. There's times they were apart for over a year. They must have broke up 10, 20 times over 10 years. There were sometimes they were only together a couple months out of the whole year. They were always breaking up, getting together, breaking up, getting together, try to stay out of it, don't fight in front of the kids. They're grown people with big careers. We only seen them on the holidays, unless something happened. In last of August of 17, the beginning of September of 17, okay, that little couple week window, John called me. She's leaving me again. And Mom, talk her out of it. And I'm like, John. He said, please. He said, she's screaming craziness and she won't listen. And I said, well, put her on the phone. And I said, Melissa, she's like, I'm so angry. I could take a gun and start shooting people. I'm like, honey, calm down. Don't ever say that again. I could just take a gun and start shooting everybody. I said, Melissa, calm down. If anybody hears you say that, you will end up in jail. This is not worth this. And she went to say, I said, listen to me. Do not ever say that again. Because if you say it, someone's going to call the police and you're going to end up in jail for saying that. You need to calm down. And she's crying how she can't handle anything. I said, honey, I know your parents moved to Florida and your sister. And I know you're here alone. And I know this is horrible. And if you and John, you have broke up so many times over the last 10 years. I said, if you want to take the kids and move to Florida, I'll talk to John. If you guys share custody where you can just fly down and see him. He's always working anyways. I'll talk to him about it. She's like, you would do that for me? I said, yes. You don't have your parents. You don't have your sister. You're here alone. And I said, and if you guys are going to break up for good this time, I'll tell you what. I'll talk to John. See if he wouldn't be, willing to go along with it. And then he could just fly down and see the kids. John made $150,000 a year. It's not like he couldn't afford a plane ticket once a month to go down there for a weekend. Or over the summer or Christmas break, go get the kids for a week. He was always working. He was always doing a side job or a full-time job. And so, honestly, he could go see him, once a month for a weekend? Twice a month? He made $150,000 a year. He could afford a plane ticket. I told her, I said, I'll ask him. I did too. I asked him. He told me to stay out of it. But I said, Dave and I always, loved you as a daughter-in-law. And we always thought highly of you. And I'll see what I can do. You would do that for me? Yes. I know you miss your parents and your sister. And if you guys aren't going to be married, I'll see what I can do. Now, I want you to think how sick this is. I want you to start thinking how sick this is. How sick is this? I offered to go to my son on her behalf to let him take the kids to Florida. And for him to fly back and forth to see him because he's always working. I offered to talk to him and I did. Told her, I said, Dave and I always loved you as a daughter-in-law and we will see what we can do on your behalf. Mom, I want you to think about her going in with Dave and the prostitutes and drug dealers to harm me. Do you know the FBI recorded Dave and I talking about that conversation? because Dave was right there while I was talking to Melissa on the phone. They also have Dave and Dixie admitting what Melissa asked me to babysit her kids before we put our house up for sale in March of 18. Since they were always fighting, getting back together, and they're violent, I didn't want in the middle of it. We only seen her kids on the holidays because they were always busy, had careers. Unless something happened. They had their own lives and they were successful. But they were always cheating on each other. Big fights. Didn't want in the middle of it. Don't fight in front of the kids. This is crazy. She even asked me to babysit her kids in 18. Dave, they have him taped admitting to knowing of it, and Dixie. But she was asking me to babysit and I turned her down. Now I want you to think about her going in it with drug dealers. Having me drug beat and raped when John finally divorces her. Within a few months. The person that offered all that to her. See, that's where I told you Melissa would have never had, if she wasn't part of this, she would have never had to steal from me. If I had that kind of money, she needed it, I would have helped her. I had nothing in my heart against her. Nothing. And her taking her anger towards John and her breaking up out on me that had nothing to do with it. Going in it with Dave and drug dealers and prostitutes to have me harmed and framed. You know, Officer Mark gave her one chance that she, they brought it up that her and her kids are documenting mean jokes. So he wouldn't have to arrest or write it up that Melissa and the kids were showing off for Dave's new girlfriend. He had to arrest her. Kids are little. They're documenting mean jokes that they were just showing off. So he wouldn't have to put her in jail. I've heard of some lady, she's waiting to arrest Melissa. It's going to be her own damn fault. Because you cannot become pure evil. Pure evil. Pure evil. Pure evil. You can't just go around harming people. And you can't hire drug dealers to drug people up and tell them to say stuff. Have them beaten, raped, photoshopped, and framed in drug dealer tapes. Act like you're going into doctors' offices, paying off dirty doctors to break HIPAA, commit healthcare fraud and wire fraud and extortion, and handing out medical records. You could never have my medical records ever in this life. Have them. Do you understand? Never. It's federal crimes of 40 to 50 years. When you realize how sick that prostitute and her family is, where it's Henry Moffey, that girl that's dating Agent John, the prostitute, laughing at everyone, stealing from the government, running a fraud scheme on the FBI. How sick all this is. I'm going to upload this.